Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to do another deep dive today into something that I think is really important, especially for folks who are working with Exchange Online in larger organizations. We're talking about something called Exchange Online Delicensing Resiliency.
Okay.
So, I think a lot of people are probably aware that in Exchange Online, your user mailboxes are tied to licenses.
Right.
And if you remove the license, poof,
Yeah.
the access goes away.
Yep.
And that can be a real pain, especially if it's done accidentally. I've heard stories of, admins accidentally delicensing entire departments because of like a typo in a script or something like that. So delicensing resiliency it's something new from Microsoft.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a safety net. It basically gives admins a 30-day grace period after a license is removed before that mailbox actually shuts down.
Yeah. So it's a big change. It used to be, immediate.
Right.
If you remove the license, it was gone. Now, there's this 30-day grace period. And what's important to understand about that grace period is that during that time, the mailbox is fully functional. So emails keep flowing, meetings aren't interrupted, the user doesn't see any difference at all.
So it's like a pause, Just gives the admin time to sort things out.
Exactly. They can either relicense the user if it was an error, or go ahead with the delicensing if it was intentional, or just wait it out.
Yeah.
It just gives a lot of flexibility.
That's a huge relief, especially for, like I said, these larger organizations.
Right.
Where even like a small error can just have a huge ripple effect.
Yeah.
So, 30 days, that could really be a lifesaver.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the source material here actually highlights a visual comparison between the old process and the new grace period system.
Uh-huh.
And, it really drives home the point of how much more forgiving the new system is. But can you maybe talk a little bit about how this actually works on the back end? What are some of the safeguards that are in place?
Well, Microsoft has put in some clever safeguards to make sure this grace period works well. So first of all, there are what they call service health advisory notifications. These are for admins. They act as kind of early warning signals.
Oh, okay. So if a delicensing happens, the admins get alerted right away.
Exactly. And they get more than just a vague alert. They actually get a count of affected users over an 8-day period.
Oh, wow.
So they can see the scope of the issue.
Yeah, that's helpful. It's not just like, oh, something happened. It's like, okay, this many people were affected.
Exactly.
Now, on top of those admin notifications, they've also added email notifications for the users themselves.
Right.
So the users get alerted too if they're, at risk of being delicensed.
Yeah. Well, with a couple of safeguards. So first of all, the user notifications only go out if that mailbox has been active in the past 24 hours.
Okay.
And then they're sent out around day 18 after the license removal. Oh, okay. So it gives them a chance to flag it with their admin, before they actually experience any interruption.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine how much better that would be than just suddenly losing access to your mailbox.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about panic.
Yeah.
But, okay, what about the admins who want to be extra cautious and double check things? Is there a way for them to, proactively monitor this grace period?
Yeah, there's a new command they can use. It's called get pending delicence user.
Oh, okay.
And this will show them the exact expiry date of that grace period for each user.
Oh, so it's not just notifications. It's actually giving them, the ability to kind of manage this.
Right. Exactly.
All right. And then there was also mention of the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Something about that too.
Yeah, for those admins who are more visual, they prefer a visual approach, the Microsoft 365 Admin Center now shows this grace period information as well.
Oh, okay.
So whether you like the command line or you like the visual approach, you've got options. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So, it gives people the ability to work in the way that they're comfortable with.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's a good example of how Microsoft is really tailoring features to different user groups, And speaking of user groups, the source material actually mentioned that this delicensing resiliency feature is opt-in.
Okay.
And it's initially available for tenants with over 10,000 non-trial Exchange Online licenses.
Wow.
So it seems like they're targeting the larger organizations with this, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it definitely does seem that way. And I guess it makes sense when you think about it. These larger organizations, they've got, thousands of users.
Right.
Potentially different admins managing different departments. It's just a lot more complex, you know?
Yeah.
And so the potential for accidental delicensing is probably a lot higher.
Right.
Like one little script error
Yeah.
could take out a whole team. That's where I think this delicensing resiliency really becomes, a lifesaver.
Absolutely. And in those larger organizations, the impact of an outage is just, it's magnified.
Right.
You've got more people affected, more productivity lost, potentially bigger financial consequences,
Yeah.
So giving those organizations that extra layer of protection
Right.
is, I think, a smart move on Microsoft's part.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like they're saying, we understand the challenges you face, and we're here to help you avoid those big disruptions.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up that idea of Microsoft understanding, their customers' challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Because the source material also mentions that this feature was actually born out of, real world incidents.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just something they, cooked up in a lab.
Right.
It was like they listened to the customer feedback.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, this is a real pain point. We need to address this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important, I think. Because it shows that, they're paying attention to what's actually happening, in the trenches, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they're not just focused on adding new shiny features. They're also investing in making, the core experience more robust and reliable.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit further.
Yeah.
So the Force also mentions that this feature is currently only available in the WW Cloud. I'm assuming that means the worldwide standard Microsoft cloud environment.
Right, yeah.
And they're actually asking for feedback on whether to roll it out to government and sovereign clouds.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's a really smart approach.
Yeah.
It suggests they're, being cautious and deliberate, especially when it comes to environments with, unique requirements.
Right.
Government, sovereign clouds, they often have stricter security and compliance regulations.
Right.
So it makes sense that they want to gather feedback before they make any changes that could, potentially impact those environments.
It's almost like they're saying, we want to make sure we get this right for everyone.
Yeah.
And we're not going to rush into anything without really thinking it through.
Exactly. It's a measured approach.
Yeah.
Which is reassuring, I think, especially for those organizations that are operating in those more sensitive environments.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for the folks who are like, okay, this is great, I'm ready to enable this, the source actually goes into a lot of detail about the steps involved. They really walk you through the process, explain all the different settings, the options that are available.
Right.
They even have a whole section on how to test it in a safe environment.
Right.
Before you roll it out to the whole organization.
Yeah. Yeah. Having that level of detail and that guidance is it's crucial.
Yeah.
It shows they're not just, throwing a feature over the wall. They're providing the support and the resources to help organizations implement it successfully.
It's like, here's the tool.
Yeah.
And here's, the roadmap to actually make it work.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, for our listeners who are maybe thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but like, what does this actually mean for me? Like, why should I care about this? What's the big takeaway here?
At its core, this is about peace of mind. You know, it's about knowing that you have a safety net in place.
Right.
If something goes wrong with your Exchange Online licensing, right? It's about reducing the stress, the panic associated with, accidental delicensing.
Yeah, and from the user's perspective, it's about ensuring, a smoother, more reliable experience.
Right.
Right. No more sudden loss of access. No more, scrambling to figure out what happened.
Exactly. And when you consider the potential impact of an outage.
Oh, yeah.
Lost productivity.
Yeah.
Missed deadlines. Frustrated users. It becomes clear that this is, more than just a technical feature.
Yeah.
This is a business enabler.
Yeah, it's like having, that feeling of knowing you've got a spare tire in your car.
Yeah.
Right. You hope you never have to use it.
Right.
But just knowing it's there.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off.
Exactly.
Right. It lets you focus on the road ahead.
That's a great analogy. And it's not about being careless or ignoring best practices. It's about having that extra layer of protection.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Right.
To handle those unforeseen circumstances.
Exactly. It's a safety net, not a crutch.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's there to catch you if you fall, but you still need to be walking carefully.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It really does sound like this delicensing resiliency.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big win for Exchange Online admins.
It is, yeah.
Especially in those larger organizations where, like we said, the stakes are higher.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a significant step forward, I think, in terms of reliability,
Right.
peace of mind.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember,
Yeah.
no single feature is a silver bullet.
Right.
Careful license management is still crucial.
So it's not a reason to just like throw caution to the wind and just
Yeah.
start managing licenses haphazardly.
No. Organizations should still have, clear processes in place
Right.
for assigning and managing licenses.
Yeah.
And they should use automation tools carefully to avoid those accidental changes.
Yeah, it goes back to that, spare tire analogy.
Yeah.
It's great to have it,
Right.
but you don't want to be driving around on a spare all the time.
Right.
You still need to take care of your regular tires.
Exactly. This is a last line of defense, not a primary strategy.
Right.
It's there to catch you if you trip, but you still need to be paying attention to where you're walking.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So, I mean, to kind of wrap things up here,
Yeah.
this delicensing resiliency feature, it's a powerful tool,
It is.
right? It provides that safety net,
Yeah.
reduces the risk of disruptions,
Uh,
offers more flexibility in managing user access.
Oh.
But it's not a replacement for just having, solid license management practices in place.
Right. And that brings us to a thought-provoking question for our listeners.
Okay.
What are some best practices for license management in your own organization?
Right.
Are there additional safeguards you could implement, to complement this new feature and further enhance your security posture?
Yeah, that's a great point. Things like, multi-factor authentication,
Right.
role-based access control,
Uh-huh.
Those can add extra layers of protection,
Absolutely.
even with this new safety net in place.
Exactly. It's about taking a holistic approach
Yeah.
to security and leveraging all the tools at your disposal to create a truly resilient Exchange Online environment.
Well said. Well, hey, thanks for diving deep with us today into this world of Exchange Online Delicensing Resiliency.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I hope you found it informative
Yeah,
and dare I say reassuring.
absolutely.
Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.